I've worked a lot of night jobs in my life, but nothing ever felt quite like the railway. Maybe it's the silence that settles over the tracks after midnight, or the way the stations feel abandoned, even when they're not. During the day, trains are loud, crowded, alive. At night, they feel like something else entirely. Something hollow. Something waiting. I wasn't always a conductor. Before this, I bounced between jobs that barely paid enough to keep the lights on. Warehouse shifts, security gigs, even a short stint cleaning office buildings after hours. When I saw the listing for a night conductor position, it felt like a step up. The pay was better than anything I'd had before, and the hours, midnight to 5 a.m., meant I'd have my days free. It sounded simple enough. Run a short route between 5 stations. No passengers after a certain point. Mostly just making sure the train completes its loop and returns to the depot before sunrise. I applied that same night. They called me the next morning. The man on the phone didn't introduce himself properly. His voice was flat, almost mechanical, like he'd been repeating the same lines all day. "You applied for the night conductor position." "Yes," I said. "That's me." A pause. Not long, but long enough to feel intentional. "Can you start tonight?" That should have been my first warning. Most jobs drag the process out. Interviews, paperwork, background checks. This one skipped all of it. I hesitated, just for a second, but the thought of another missed opportunity pushed the doubt aside. "Yeah," I said, "I can start tonight." "Good," he replied immediately. "Report to Platform 3 at 11:45 p.m. Don't be late." The line went dead before I could ask anything else. No confirmation email. No contract. No details. Just a time and a place. Still, I showed up. By the time I reached the station, the city had already started to quiet down. The usual noise was gone, replaced by the distant hum of traffic and the occasional echo of footsteps. Platform 3 was nearly empty, lit by a row of flickering fluorescent lights that buzzed softly overhead. The train was already there. It didn't look unusual at first glance, but the longer I stared at it, the more something felt off. The paint looked older than the rest of the trains I'd seen, dull and slightly peeling in places. The windows were dark, almost too dark, like they absorbed the light instead of reflecting it. "First night?" The voice came from behind me. I turned to see an older man standing a few feet away. He wore the same conductor uniform I'd been told to pick up from the front desk, but his looked worn, like he'd been wearing it for years. "Yeah," I said. "You?" He gave a short laugh. Not amused, more like tired. "Not anymore." Something about the way he said it made my stomach tighten. Before I could respond, he stepped closer and held out a folded piece of paper. "You'll need this," he said. I frowned. "What is it?" He didn't answer right away, just watched me like he was deciding something. "Rules," he said finally, "for the night route." I almost laughed. "Rules? I'm just driving a train, right?" That same tired expression crossed his face again, but this time there was something else behind it, something heavier. "Just read them," he said, "and follow them." Exactly. I took the paper, more out of politeness than anything else. Slightly crumpled, like it had been folded and unfolded too many times. "Where's the supervisor?" I asked. I didn't even get a proper, "He won't be here," the man interrupted. I blinked. "What do you mean?" But when I looked up, he was already walking away. "Hey," I called after him. "Wait!" He didn't stop. Within seconds, he disappeared down the far end of the platform, swallowed by shadow. I stood there for a moment, the silence pressing in around me. Then I looked back at the train. Its doors slid open with a low hiss. No driver, no other staff, no passengers, just me. I told myself it was normal. Maybe night shifts ran differently. Maybe everything was automated now. Still, the unease lingered as I stepped inside. The interior lights flickered once, then stabilized. Rows of empty seats stretched down the length of the carriage. Clean, but not new. The air inside felt cooler than it should have been, carrying a faint metallic smell. I made my way to the conductor's cabin at the front. The controls were already active. A digital clock blinked on the panel, 11:59 p.m., right on time. As the train hummed quietly beneath me, I remembered the paper in my hand. I hesitated. Then I unfolded it. The handwriting was uneven, like it had been written in a hurry. Rules for the night route. I felt a small, irrational chill run down my spine. Rule 1. Depart exactly at 12 a.m. Do not leave earlier. Do not leave later. If you miss the time, do not start the route. I glanced at the clock again. 11:59. Rule 2. Do not open the doors between stations, even if you see someone on the tracks. A faint creak echoed somewhere behind me. I turned, but the carriage was still empty. I looked back down at the paper. Rule 3. After the second station, you may notice a passenger board the train. You did not stop for them. Do not acknowledge them. My grip tightened slightly. That wasn't funny. Rule 4. If the train lights flicker 3 times in a row, close your eyes and count to 10. Do not look at the windows during this time. The lights above me buzzed softly. Steady. For now. Rule 5. At the 4th station, the platform may appear different. This is normal. Do not step outside under any circumstances. I let out a slow breath, trying to steady myself. This had to be some kind of joke. A hazing thing. New guy gets the creepy list. See how long it takes him to crack. Yeah, that made sense. It had to. The clock ticked over. 12 a.m. The train lurched forward. I folded the paper carefully and slipped it into my pocket, shaking my head. Just a job, I muttered to myself. But as the station slid away behind me, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just started something I didn't understand. And somewhere, deep in the empty train behind me, I thought I heard a seat shift. The sound was subtle. So subtle, I almost convinced myself I imagined it. The kind old seats make when someone shifts their weight. I didn't turn around. Not immediately. Instead, I focused on the tracks ahead, watching the dark tunnel swallow the beam of the train's front light. My hands rested on the controls, steady, even though I could feel my pulse starting to climb. It's nothing, I said quietly. The words didn't help. Slowly, against my better judgment, I glanced at the small monitor mounted above the control panel. It displayed a live feed of the passenger car behind me. Empty. Every row of seats sat perfectly still, untouched. I stared at the screen for a few seconds longer than necessary, waiting for something to move. Nothing did. Yeah, I muttered. Just nerves. Still, I couldn't ignore what I'd read. Rule 3. After the second station, you may notice a passenger board the train. You did not stop for them. I checked the route display. Next stop, Station 1. Good, I whispered. Not even close yet. The train rolled smoothly along the tracks, the rhythmic clatter echoing through the metal frame. It should have been calming, familiar. But tonight every sound felt amplified, like the silence around it was listening. Station 1 came into view sooner than I expected. The platform lights were on, casting a dull yellow glow across the concrete. A few benches, a vending machine, a map board, everything looked completely normal. No people. The train slowed automatically, easing into position. The doors stayed closed. I frowned. That's weird. I checked the panel. No error messages, no alerts. Then I remembered. No passengers after a certain point. Maybe this was that point. The train idled for exactly 10 seconds. Then it moved again. No announcements. Just in and out. Like the station didn't matter. I exhaled slowly, trying to relax. See? Normal. But the word felt wrong the moment I said it. The tunnel after Station 1 felt darker than the last. Not just visually, there was a weight to it, like the air itself had thickened. I found myself glancing at the clock more often. 12:17 a.m. Still early. Still fine. Then the lights flickered. Once, I froze. The hum above me stuttered, dipping just slightly before stabilizing again. I stared up at the ceiling. Probably the power, I said quickly. Old train. Old wiring. Then it flickered again. Twice. My chest tightened. I didn't want to look at the paper. I didn't need to. Rule 4 was already burned into my head. If the train lights flicker 3 times in a row, the third flicker came. Everything went dark. Not dim, not low, completely black. My breath caught in my throat. For a split second, instinct screamed at me to look around, to check the windows, the doors, the monitor. But I forced my eyes shut. Count to 10, I whispered. My voice sounded too loud in the darkness. 1. The train kept moving. I could feel it beneath my feet, steady and unchanging. 2. Something shifted behind me. Louder this time. Not a creak, a step. 3. My fingers dug into the edge of the control panel. 4. Another step. Closer. I could hear it clearly now. Footsteps, measured. Dragging slightly, like whatever was making them wasn't walking properly. 6. My breathing quickened despite myself. 7. The sound stopped, right behind me. 8. The air felt colder. 9. I could feel it. That presence. Close enough that if I reached out. 10. The lights snapped back on. I opened my eyes immediately, gasping slightly as I spun around. The carriage behind me was empty. Completely. No movement. No shadows. Nothing out of place. I let out a shaky laugh. Okay, I said. That was good. A prank. It had to be. Some kind of audio trick. Hidden speakers maybe. Yeah, that made sense. It didn't, but I needed it to. The train began to slow again. Station 2. The platform here looked different. Not drastically, just off. The lights were dimmer. The paint on the walls looked older, chipped in places. The signage flickered faintly, like it couldn't decide whether to stay on or not. Still no people. The train stopped. 10 seconds. Then it moved again. I swallowed, my mouth suddenly dry. Okay, I said under my breath. 2 stations down. And then it hit me. Rule 3. After the second station. I felt my stomach drop. Slowly, very slowly, I turned my head toward the monitor. The screen flickered once, then stabilized. At first everything looked the same. Still air. Then I saw it. Someone was sitting in the last row. I froze. They hadn't been there before. I knew they hadn't. The figure sat perfectly still, facing forward. Their head tilted slightly downward, as if they were looking at their hands. I couldn't see their face. Only dark hair, hanging just enough to obscure it. My first instinct was to grab the intercom, to ask who they were, how they got on. But my hand stopped halfway. You did not stop for them. Do not acknowledge them. I slowly lowered my hand. Okay, I whispered. Okay, that's fine. My voice shook. I tried to look away from the monitor. I couldn't. The figure didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't shift, just sat there, waiting. I forced myself to turn back to the front window. Doesn't matter, I said. Just don't engage. The train pushed forward into the next stretch of track. But now I wasn't alone. I could feel it, not just behind me, closer. Like the space inside the cabin had changed somehow. I kept my eyes forward. Seconds passed, maybe minutes. Then, a soft sound, right outside the cabin door. A gentle tap. I froze again. Another tap followed, almost polite. My throat tightened. There was no reason for anyone to be at that door. No reason at all. The handle didn't move. The door didn't open. Just silence. Then, a third tap, slightly louder, followed by something else. A voice. Quiet. Calm. "Excuse me." I shut my eyes. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." The voice came again, closer this time. I think I missed my stop. I didn't turn around. I didn't respond. I didn't move. Because deep down, I already knew. That wasn't a passenger. I stayed completely still. Every muscle locked in place. My eyes fixed on the tracks ahead, as if looking away would make it worse. The voice didn't come again. For a few seconds, there was nothing. No tapping, no movement, just the low hum of the train and the steady rhythm of the tracks beneath me. Then, slowly, the handle on the cabin door began to turn. I felt my chest tighten so sharply it almost hurt. The metal clicked softly, like someone testing it. Once, twice, then it stopped. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. I didn't even blink, because something about that moment told me, if the door opened, it wouldn't stop there. The handle snapped back into place. Silence returned. But it wasn't empty silence anymore. It was the kind that lingers after something leaves, or decides to wait. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Just follow the rules," I whispered. "That's it. Just follow the rules." My hands were trembling now, barely noticeable, but enough that I had to grip the controls tighter to steady them. I didn't look at the monitor again. I didn't need to. I already knew the passenger was still there. I could feel it. The train began to slow. Station 3. The moment the platform lights came into view, I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. Light meant normal. Light meant safe. But as the train pulled closer, that feeling faded just as quickly as it came. Something was wrong. The platform was empty. Not just empty of people. Empty of everything. No vending machines. Just a long stretch of bare concrete under dim, flickering lights. And the lights, they weren't steady. They pulsed, slowly, like breathing. I stared, my unease building into something sharper. This isn't right. The train came to a stop. 10 seconds. I watched the platform carefully. Nothing moved. Nothing changed. Then, just as the train started moving again, something appeared. A figure, standing at the far end of the platform. Tall, thin, too thin. Its limbs looked stretched, disproportionate, like they didn't quite belong to its body. Its head tilted slightly as the train passed, following me. Even from that distance, I knew it was looking directly at me. My breath hitched. "Don't react," I muttered under my breath. "Just don't react." The train picked up speed, leaving the platform and the thing standing on it behind. But the image stuck with me, burned into my mind. And then I remembered, there was another rule, one I hadn't read yet. My hand moved slowly to my pocket. For a moment, I hesitated. Part of me didn't want to know. But that wasn't an option anymore. I pulled out the paper and unfolded it, with shaking hands, my eyes scanning quickly, until I found the next line. Rule 6. If you see someone on platform 3 that does not look human, do not make eye contact. If you believe it has seen you, do not check the passenger car for the next 5 minutes. My stomach dropped. I had definitely looked. And it had definitely looked back. 5 minutes, I whispered. Just don't check. I folded the paper quickly and shoved it back into my pocket. My instincts screamed at me to look at the monitor, to check if the passenger was still there, if something else had appeared. But I forced myself to keep my eyes forward. Seconds stretched, each one heavier than the last. The train moved deeper into the tunnel. The darkness outside, thicker than before, pressing against the windows like something alive. I focused on counting. 1 minute. 2. My breathing slowly steadied, though the tension in my chest never fully eased. 3 minutes. Then, a sound. Not behind me, not outside, inside the cabin. A soft, dragging noise, right beside me. I froze. My eyes darted, just slightly, to the side. And that's when I saw it. A reflection, in the glass of the control panel. Someone was standing behind me. Closer than before. Close enough that I should have heard them move, but I hadn't. They were just there. The same figure from the last row. Head tilted, face still hidden, but now, closer. My heart slammed against my ribs. No, I whispered. No, that's not. I stopped myself. Rule 6. Do not check. I squeezed my eyes shut for a second, trying to steady myself. It's not real, I told myself. It's just... The reflection moved. Not a step, not a shift, a tilt. Its head slowly leaned to one side, like it was studying me. A cold wave of dread washed over me. I couldn't take it. I turned. Fast. Too fast. The space behind me was empty. Completely empty. No one there. No movement. Nothing. I stumbled back slightly, my breath coming faster now. I didn't see anything, I said quickly, like saying it out loud would make it true. But I had. I knew I had. And worse, I had broken the rule. The lights flickered once, then again. I stared up at them, my pulse spiking. No, I said. Not again. Not now. The third flicker hit. Darkness swallowed everything. This time, I shut my eyes immediately. 1, I whispered, my voice shaking more than before. The train kept moving, but something was different. The air felt heavier, closer. 2, a sound echoed through the cabin. Not footsteps, not tapping. Breathing. Slow, uneven. Right next to my ear. 3, my entire body went rigid. 4, the breathing grew louder. 5, a whisper slipped through the darkness. You looked. My chest tightened violently. 6, now I know you can see me. 7, I wanted to run. There was nowhere to go. 8, the voice shifted. Lower. Closer. Turn around. 9, I clenched my fists, forcing myself to stay still. No, I'm not. 10, the lights came back on. I spun around instantly. Nothing. No one. Just the empty cabin. But this time, the silence didn't feel like relief. It felt like something had changed. Like a line had been crossed. Slowly, against everything in me telling me not to, I looked at the monitor. The last row was empty. The passenger was gone. For a brief moment, I felt a flicker of relief. Maybe it was over. Maybe a hand pressed against the glass of the cabin door. From the other side, long fingers, too long, resting flat against the window. Then another, and another, like something was slowly leaning its weight against it. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, as the shape of a face began to press faintly against the glass, from inches away. I couldn't look away. The face against the glass wasn't fully visible, not in any way that made sense. It was like trying to focus on something underwater, blurred, shifting, never quite forming into something human. But the pressure of it was real. The way the glass bowed slightly inward told me that whatever was on the other side had weight. Too much weight. My legs felt locked, like if I moved even an inch, it would notice. Maybe it already had. The fingers slid slowly downward, dragging across the glass with a faint squeal that made my teeth clench. They left no marks, no smudges, just sound. Then the face tilted. Not naturally. It bent at an angle that no neck should allow, as if something inside it had loosened. A voice seeped through the door. Muffled. Distorted. "Let me in." I shook my head immediately, even though I hadn't been asked a question. "No," I whispered. "No, I'm not opening that." The handle jerked violently. Once, twice. Then it stopped. The silence that followed felt heavier than anything before it. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, the hands peeled away from the glass. The pressure disappeared. The shape of the face receded, and just like that, it was gone. I stayed frozen for several seconds, staring at the door, waiting for it to come back. It didn't. My body finally gave in, and I stumbled back into the seat, dragging in a sharp breath like I'd been underwater too long. Just finish the route. My hands were shaking badly now. I forced them back onto the controls. The train began to slow again. Station 4. I almost didn't want to look, but I had to. The platform came into view, and immediately I knew something was very wrong. It wasn't a station, not anymore. The structure was there, but everything else was different. The walls looked older, decayed, covered in stains that spread like shadows. The lights flickered erratically, some of them completely dead, leaving patches of darkness that felt too deep. And the signs, they weren't in any language I recognized. The symbols twisted across the boards, shifting slightly if I looked at them too long. My stomach turned. Rule 5. Do not step outside under any circumstances. Wasn't planning on it, I whispered. The train came to a stop. 10 seconds. But this time, the doors slid open. A cold rush of air flooded in, carrying a smell I couldn't place. Something damp. Rotten. "No," I said immediately, reaching for the controls. "No, no. Close." The panel didn't respond. The doors stayed open. The darkness on the platform seemed to lean inward, like it was aware of the opening. Waiting. I stayed in my seat. I didn't move. Seconds ticked by. Then, a sound. Footsteps. Not behind me, not inside the train, outside. Something was walking along the platform. Slow, heavy, deliberate. I gripped the controls tighter, my knuckles turning white. "Don't look," I whispered. "Don't." The footsteps stopped, right outside the open door. Silence. Then, very gently, something stepped onto the train. The floor creaked under the weight. Once, twice, 3 steps in. I squeezed my eyes shut for a second, my chest tightening. "No more," I whispered. "There's not supposed to be." The doors slammed shut. The train lurched forward instantly. I opened my eyes, panic rising fast. "No," I said under my breath. "No, no, no." There was something on the train again. But this time, it wasn't the same. I could feel it. The air had changed. Heavier. Colder. Wrong. I looked at the monitor before I could stop myself. At first, I didn't see anything. Then, the screen flickered, and the image shifted. Every seat was filled. Figures sat in complete stillness, lining both sides of the carriage. Dozens of them, all facing forward, all identical in posture, heads slightly lowered, faces obscured. My breath caught. That's not possible. None of them had been there before, not even seconds ago. And then, one of them moved, just slightly. Its head lifted, slowly turning, toward the camera, toward me. The screen distorted violently, static ripping across the image. I flinched back, remembering, don't stare at the footage too long. I tore my gaze away, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might give out. This is almost over, I told myself. It has to be. I checked the clock. 4:58 a.m. 2 minutes. Just 2 more minutes. The train roared through the final stretch of track, the tunnel ahead beginning to lighten faintly. Dawn. I'd never been so relieved to see it. The pressure in the air began to ease, just slightly. The weight lifting. The feeling of being watched, fading. The train slowed one last time as the depot came into view. Normal. Everything looked normal. Clean platforms, bright lights, no shadows stretching where they shouldn't. The train came to a complete stop. The doors opened. I didn't wait. I grabbed my jacket and stepped out immediately, my legs unsteady but moving. I didn't look back. I didn't want to. First night, the voice stopped me cold. I turned slowly. The same man from before stood a few feet away. Same uniform, same tired expression. But now, there was something else in his eyes. Expectation. "Well?" he asked. My throat felt dry. "I followed the rules," I said. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Good," he said quietly. A pause. Then, "Did anything follow you out?" My stomach dropped. I didn't answer, didn't move, because suddenly, I wasn't sure. Behind me, inside the train, something shifted. Soft, subtle, like a seat adjusting. The man's expression didn't change. "Don't come back tomorrow," he said. I didn't argue. I walked away, fast. I didn't look back at the train. Not once. But even now, sometimes late at night, when everything is quiet, I hear it. That same sound. A soft knock.